Hello there, I'm Andrew Hardy and I'm making this video to illustrate the use of the new CQPwebInABox facility, which is a downloadable version of CQPweb where you can install the whole thing in one big go without having to set up each of the components one by one. I'll just start with a little explanation and then we'll move on to the actual business of getting CQPwebInABox set up. Firstly, let me explain what it is. CQPweb is a rather complex bit of kit to get set up. If you want to install it, you've got to install quite a lot of different components. You've got to fiddle with the settings. It's quite tricky. You've got to know what you're doing in order to get it working properly. This means that it's not currently all that easy for most users, for instance, to get a copy of CQPweb running on their own home computer or their own laptop. The way that I've settled on to make this easier is by using something called a virtual machine. If you've not heard of virtual machines, here's the short version. A virtual machine is a computer that runs as a program inside another computer. What I mean is, you might have your computer on your desktop running Windows or Mac OS or whatever, and then inside a window on that computer you've got a program that fakes the setup of a completely different computer. That's why it's called a virtual machine, because your actual computer on your desktop or your laptop or whatever has the software to create a virtual or simulated computer inside itself. So you have your normal computer running as normal, and then you have a window on your desktop or whatever, and inside that window you can run a whole other computer which, as far as it knows, it's just a normal machine. It doesn't know that it's trapped inside another computer. And the great thing about virtual machines is that they don't care what kind of real computer they're running on. So your real computer might be Windows, but you could run a virtual machine that is Linux, or vice versa. You could have a Linux real computer and then a Windows virtual machine running inside it. Another very useful thing about virtual machines is that they can be saved as files, big files, and then copied, sent around the internet, given to other people. What that means is that I've created a virtual machine, a very small, simple virtual machine, on which I have installed CQPweb with all the usual settings and with a couple of sample corpora. And I've taken this virtual machine and wrapped it all up so that it can be downloaded from the web. Anyone else can run this virtual machine on their computer and thus, in a nice, easy way, have their own CQPweb already set up for them for doing things on. So that's the idea behind it. It means that you download a virtual machine from the internet, and immediately, once it's all set up, there you go, you have your own CQPweb running on your computer. It's called CQPwebInABox because box is a kind of slang term for a computer, so it reflects the fact that what you're downloading is a computer that has CQPweb in it. You're not just downloading CQPweb. It is also, for those of you who had childhoods a sufficiently large number of years ago, it's a pun on the term Jack-in-a-Box, of course. Right, so to install CQPwebInABox on your computer, there are two basic steps. The first step is that you have to get your computer set up to run virtual machines, and the second step is to download CQPwebInABox and plug it all in, get it up and running. So this is what I'm going to walk you through in this particular video. In a subsequent video I'll cover some slightly more advanced stuff, but right now just looking at these things, these basic things of getting started. So the first thing, as I say, that you need to do is to install some software that can run a virtual machine. There are lots of different types, and the type of file that you can download that contains CQPwebInABox is not terribly fussy about what software you have. It uses a particular file type called the OVA file type, and lots of different virtual machine software is quite happy running using these OVA files. So as long as your virtual machine software is capable of handling these OVA files, you'll have no problem. That said, the one that I think is easiest is something called VirtualBox, so that's the one that I'm going to demonstrate. If you already have VirtualBox, then no problem. Alternatively, you may have something called VMware, which is another alternative that does many of the same things. VMware is also quite happy with these OVA files, but I'm not going to show you how to do it with VMware. I'm going to show you how to do it with VirtualBox. So I'm assuming here that we're starting from nothing, and our first step is to download the things that we need. So let us first start by starting off our download of the CQPwebInABox virtual machine. The address that you need to go to get going on this is cwb.sourceforge.net. Okay? Here it is. This is our website. There we are. And the link that you want is to click here where it says Get the CWB, which takes you to the download page. And if you scroll down a little bit, here we go, CQPweb, this heading here. Now the first entry on this list is all about the normal installation of CQPweb. That's what we're skipping here. We're looking at CQPwebInABox, a virtual machine image containing all components of CQPweb pre-installed. And as it says here, you can download CQPwebInABox from SourceForge. So we'll click here to open that up, and here we go. So we're on the sourceforge.net site here, and SourceForge, if you don't know about it, is a website that functions as a platform for developing and releasing software of various sorts. And this will give you, this page here is part of the Corpus Workbench SourceForge site, and it's one of the files pages. It's the files page for CQPwebInABox. Now, obviously, I will be releasing CQPwebInABox multiple times as time goes on to make sure that you've always got the ability to download the most up-to-date one here. So there's only one here right now, but I do If you come here and there are multiple versions of CQPwebInABox, the one that you should pick is the one that has the most recent date as part of its file name. So you can see here that the name of the file is CQPwebInABox and then a date, and the date is year, month, day. So this was created on the 31st of March 2015. I can't say off the top of my head when I'm going to do the next one. It'll probably be sometime in May 2015. But as I say, always click on the link for the most recent one available. So I'll click on that link here. And usually what will happen, I say usually, is that either you will get a download starting, and yes, here I have it. It will say, do you want to open or save? Click save, and it will start downloading. Now, the reason I started this first is, as you can see, it's quite a big download. I'm not quite sure how big off the top of my head, but it's quite big. It's going to take about half an hour to download that file. So I thought that it was worth starting that off first. We'll now go and get the other thing that we need. And the other thing that we need, of course, is the VirtualBox software to run it. Now, the website that we need for that is, I think it's VirtualBox.org. If it's not VirtualBox.org, then I'll get a suggestion. Yes, VirtualBox.org. So, VirtualBox, if you've not heard of it, was originally its own company. More recently, a few years ago, it was taken over by Oracle, which is a very big database company, one of the biggest software companies in the world. So, although you may not have heard of it, we are not talking about some obscure miniature organization here. We're talking about a product from one of the major companies in the industry. Okay, so you want to go to this link here that says downloads, and here we have a lot of lists of links and lots of technical detail, but I can just tell you to ignore nearly all of this stuff. What you want is the link here for the computer that you're installing. If you're using Linux, then you've actually got a link here, which, let's open that up and take a look. You've got a different page which gives you all kinds of different downloads for downloading VirtualBox for different versions of Linux. I should point out, however, that many versions of Linux, including Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, so on and so forth, that they have VirtualBox or parts of VirtualBox in their own software setup in their package management system, so you can use that to get VirtualBox without going through the VirtualBox website, and actually that's what I usually do. It's very, very easy. But of course, if you're a Linux person, then nothing I'm saying will be new to you, so we will pass over the case of Linux. I'll just close that. Here we are. Let's look at the two options here. VirtualBox for Windows hosts, VirtualBox for OS X hosts. Host here is a bit of virtual machine jargon. When you have a virtual machine running inside a real machine, then we call the real machine the host, and we call the virtual machine the guest. So, here we are. Here is where you click if you are using a Mac. It should take you to, yes, you can see here it says, do you want to open or save VirtualBox 4.3.dmg, and .dmg is a .dmg is then something that you can install on an Apple Mac, but this isn't an Apple Mac, so let's press cancel. For Windows, you can click here. Now, see it says x86 AMD 64. That's just some technical jargon. It just means that means Windows running on a normal kind of computer. So, I will click that. Now, you can see VirtualBox.exe, so it's a normal Windows program file that you can use to install it. And again, we're going to press save. Has it finished? I can't see anymore. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to click on the Windows Explorer, and I'm going to go to the Downloads folder, which is where Internet Explorer puts everything that it's downloading. And I can see that both of these are still in progress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this recording to allow time to fast forward until the download of VirtualBox is finished. Hello again. I've just let time jump forwards, and the VirtualBox download has completed. It's about 100 megabytes, so that's why it took a little time. Right, so once it's finished, we can click on Run to install it. And that should pop up a little window. Here we go, Windows Installer preparing to install. Welcome to the Oracle VM VirtualBox Setup Wizard. So this is a setup wizard, as I'm sure you've seen for many other programs. For nearly all cases, the default settings are just fine. Okay, so this is the settings that we've got, and you can literally just leave the defaults, don't tinker with them, just go on to next. What you will normally want to do is untick the first two, but leave the last one ticked here, Register File Associations. If you want a shortcut on the desktop to VirtualBox, then tick there to get one, but there's no real reason to have one unless you're mad keen on desktop shortcuts. Okay, now what it's saying is that installing the Oracle VM VirtualBox networking will reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the network. Okay, so what it means is that while it's installing, it's going to turn off the internet connection for a couple of seconds. Since I've got my download going on in the other window, I don't really want that to happen. That would be quite bad. So again, I'm just going to pause it there and wait for that download to finish. Using the recording pause to zoom into the future, so I will see you after the time warp. Okay, the download has now completed, and so we can safely continue with installation of VirtualBox without worrying that it's going to interrupt our download of the CQPwebInABox. So I'll actually just minimize Internet Explorer, and shall we proceed with installation? Yes. Press install, and it will just take a minute. Shouldn't take too long. I may have spoken too soon about how long it's taking. What you would normally see when these things are installing is the progress marker will probably appear down here on the taskbar as well, and often you see some flashing messages. Right, yes. It will probably ask you this. Just say yes. There it goes. Yes. Okay. So we've got our little messages running. Incidentally, as you've noticed, as I'm sure you've noticed, this is Windows 7 that I'm installing this on. To the best of my knowledge, on Windows 8 or 8.1, it's more or less exactly the same. I can't speak for Mac OS, unfortunately. Don't know enough about Apple Macs. Okay, yes, when it says, would you like to install this device software, then you can just press the install button if that ever pops up. And it looks like it's nearly finished. Oh, one more. When it talks about network adapters, by the way, it's these are the network adapters used by the simulated hardware to connect to the internet. As we'll see, that's actually switched off for the CQPwebInABox, but we'll see that in a minute. Nearly there. Install. I'm not quite sure why it pops up that many times, but it is safe to install them. Oh, we're done. Right, okay. I'm going to untick this box to start VirtualBox immediately because I just want to walk you through how to start it up. Okay. So we have now installed VirtualBox. So you would now be able to find it on the Start menu or on the Start screen if you're using Windows 8. As you can see, it has actually popped up there, Oracle VM VirtualBox. You may also find a group on the yes, here we are. You will find a group on the Start menu, and that's where you start it. That's where you start it up. Anyway, right. So here is VirtualBox. Let me just drag the window in. This is what it looks like. What happens is that as you create or add virtual machines, they appear in this little panel here, and then this shows details of them. It's a very, very simple box on the Windows screen. Nothing terribly technical. What we want to do now is we want to import CQPwebInABox into here so that we can start it up and run it. So if I go back to Internet Explorer, this one, here we are, yes, we can now close that page. You will see that it says that the CQPwebInABox.OVA download has completed, yes. I believe how long it takes depends on how fast your internet connection is. Mine's reasonably fast, so it took about half an hour. And if I go to the downloads folder, here it is. There, you will see that it gives you this cubic icon, which is the icon for files associated with VirtualBox, and that's an open virtualization format archive file, which is what a .ova file is. All that means is that this is a single file that contains two things, basically. It contains all the instructions that VirtualBox needs to create a virtual machine, plus it contains the hard drives of the machine that we want to set up. So I can actually I can minimize Internet Explorer. And what we do quite simply is we use VirtualBox to import, the command is called importing an appliance. And it's here under File. You go to File, Import Appliance. And basically what you do is you find the location of this OVA file that you have downloaded and you say import, and then it will appear here in the VirtualBox interface. So click here to open up the file finder. Now it was in the downloads folder, so there it is. Again, if you've downloaded it to some other location like your desktop or whatever, just navigate as usual to find the .ova file. We press open and it tells us what we've selected. We press next and now it's giving us some options. Now the options are all correct, right? You should not need to change any of these. Yeah, so as you see, it contains a whole lot of settings which are to do with how it sets up the simulated hardware, plus it contains something called a virtual disk image, which is the, as I said, it's the actual hard drive of the machine that we're going to set up. So we press import, and it will give you one of these, another of these zoom menus. Now this is another step that can take a while, so I am going to pause it until the next point at which doing something is needed. If I'm giving the impression of this taking a long time and it taking and having to keep pausing my recording quite a lot while we wait for these things to run, then yes, this is true. There are some things involved here that do take a long time. That's just the nature of these things. There is 1.8 gigabytes of memory wrapped up in this file, and it takes quite a bit of time for VirtualBox to open it up and set it all up correctly. So again, I'm not suggesting that anyone should sit and stare at this as it runs. I'm going to pause the video again. I'm going to pause the video recording again and wait for this little progress bar to make its way up to 100%. And I will restart recording as soon as we get to the next bit where something needs to be done. So, speak to you later. Okay, here we are. The importing of the OVA file is now finished. It took, I think, a grand total of 15-20 minutes, and once it's done, and the fact that it's done means I can now close that. Once it's done, here's what you'll see in the VirtualBox Manager window. We've now got a little icon here representing our virtual machine, and here's some information about it. And a little screen of what the computer is doing at the moment, which right now is nothing because it's not switched on. So basically, all of the information here you can ignore, right? It's irrelevant to you. Okay, so so here we are, and to start, we just either select what we want here and then click on the start button, or you can also double click here. Now I'm going to have to at this point pause again and restart this video on another computer for complex reasons to do with my setup. It isn't actually going to run on the setup that I've been using to film this video, so I'm going to switch to another setup where I can actually run it and show you what's going on. Just to illustrate what the problem is, you shouldn't see this error message. This is the error message. You should never see this, but if you do, it means that you can't run CQPwebInABox on the computer that you're currently using, so try a different computer. Okay, so here we are on my other computer. And as you can see, because I do various things with virtual machines, you do actually see here more than one virtual machine, but it's this one here we're interested in, the installation of CQPwebInABox. So we start it up, and it's probably going to appear in a really big window that I will need to move, but we'll see. Ah yes, here we are. There we go. So let me just make this a little bit bigger. One of the interesting things about VirtualBox is that once you've started something up, you don't actually need to leave it. Leave this window open. You can actually close this window, the Manager window, and just use the window that contains the virtual machine. So that's what I'm going to do now. So here we are, it's starting up. Lubuntu, incidentally, is the version of Linux that I used when I created CQPwebInABox. Okay, so again, it has started up, and the window has gone out of my little area of filming, so let me just pull it back in. Here we are. So there we are, it's started up, and you have a window that represents the monitor of the virtual machine. This virtual machine has CQPweb installed. It also has Firefox installed. The reason I used Firefox rather than any other browser is that Firefox is actually more or less the same on every type of computer, whether it's Linux or Macintosh or whatever, and it's set up so that as soon as the thing switches on, it will load up Firefox and start up CQPweb. Now, if you look at the address bar here of Firefox, you can see that the web address is http localhost.cqpweb, and the localhost there means that it's running on this computer. Where this computer is the computer inside the virtual machine. Otherwise, this is exactly like CQPweb as you would see it actually on the web. It has two sample corpora installed, the BNC sampler and the Lancaster corpus of Mandarin Chinese. So just to illustrate that this is exactly the same as being on the web and using CQPweb on the web. Let's go in here. There it is. You can do a query like just pick a word and start the query. And yes, even though this is running on Linux, I would guess that those of you who don't know anything about Linux can see that this is all terribly easy, terribly familiar. Let's see. Yes, and so obviously, since this had to be downloadable over the web, I couldn't put too many corpora here, but by putting in the 2 million word BNC sampler and 1 million word Lancaster corpus of Mandarin Chinese, I have hopefully made it relatively easy to test out various things that CQPweb can do. You'll note that you didn't have to log in. Again, the system is set up so that you automatically log in. You're logged in as a user called user, very originally, who has access to everything on the system. Now, the thing that you will be able to see here that you perhaps couldn't see on a version of CQPweb that is actually on the internet is this link here where it says Admin Control Panel. If you click on that, it takes you to the system behind the scenes that manages everything that normally users aren't allowed to access on their own. But of course, since this is your computer, you have full access to it. I'm not going to explain how all of it works in this video because it's a long enough video already. You've got lots of options here though. If you need to do anything complicated, then there are separate well, some tutorials and some written manuals that let you explain how to do that. Right, yes, that's pretty much it. You are now at the point of having your CQPwebInABox up and running. The only other thing to point at is this bar across here, which is the control bar for the virtual machine. It's organized in a very similar way to old-fashioned version of Windows. So you've got the equivalent of a start button down here, and all the programs on your virtual machine are listed on different menus here. If all you're doing is using CQPweb, then you probably won't need any of that. Likewise, you've got a link to your file manager here, you've got a link to Firefox, you've got a link to a text editor, but again, that's all stuff that you probably won't need to use. When you're done, it's very easy. You close Firefox, and there you can see the desktop of the virtual machine, which has one or two useful things in it. If you want to start up CQPweb again, you can double click there to launch it again in Firefox. But if you're done, all you have to do is click on the power button here to shut down, and if you say shut down, then the whole thing will just go to black as the simulated machine turns itself off, and then it's gone, and that's that. Right, so that's the end of this introductory tutorial on CQPwebInABox. The second of these tutorials will go into a bit more detail about some of the more advanced things you can do with CQPweb running on a virtual machine. One thing that I'm not going to talk about here is something that I'm sure you would like to know about, which is that which is the process that you need to follow in order to get your own corpora installed on your CQPwebInABox. The process for installing a corpus is in fact the same whether you do it on CQPwebInABox or CQPweb installed normally, so look out for a video tutorial dealing with the corpus install process in a general way, and then you'll know how to do that. For now though, that's all. Thanks for watching.